MMA fortune teller.
The teller.
What is up, you guys? The Teller checking in. On today's episode, we're going to be breaking down UFC Fight Night Dustin Poirier versus Dan Hooker. I'm really excited for this main event. You got to figure that the winner of this fight is going to be right in line to potentially be fighting for the belt. Of course, nothing's a guarantee in the fight game, especially in the UFC. Conor McGregor's also in the mix, but you got to figure that the winner of this fight, this upcoming event taking place Saturday, the winner of that fight is going to be right in line to potentially be fighting the winner of Justin Gaethje and Khabib. So super excited to break down that fight. And other than that, I mean, just in general, the card it's a pretty exciting card. Mickey Gall versus Mike Perry. That's a fight that's a crowd pleaser. Whether or not Mike Perry's a big favorite, and we're going to get into how I think that fight's going to play out. But I'm sure a lot of you guys would agree that you're going to be excited to see how that plays out. I think we all kind of know how that fight's going to play out, but we'll get into that. Other than that, man, we got some exciting guys, throwing down. Luis Pena, Violent Bob Ross taking on Khama Worthy. Who else we got? Tanner Boser, a very tough heavyweight fighter, taking on Philipe Linz. Sean Woodson, the sniper, coming off a very impressive performance, taking on a tough customer in Kyle Nelson. And then the one and only Jordan Griffin, who was just on MMA Live Discussion this past Thursday, who actually broke the news that he was fighting Youssef Zalal on my show. We're going to be breaking down that fight here in a minute too. But before we even get to this card, you guys know the routine. We take a step back to this past weekend, and I know that this was a card that not a lot of people were happy about. Pretty much everybody that I talked to didn't have a profitable night. A lot of people were upset. I saw people actually getting pretty, the true colors are really coming out, right? A lot of people were just being belligerent and vulgar, and just they were all over the place, man. I think a lot of people had some big money on a couple of different plays. In particular, I think some people had money on Frank Camacho. I think they had some of them. Frank Camacho mixed up in some parlays. Probably a rookie mistake. I would have never touched that fight, but I saw a couple people that said they had Frank Camacho in their parlays. This guy Justin James, man, he seemed to be a tough customer. I would have stood away from that fight, but I can't sit here and brag. It wasn't a profitable night for me, so I'm not going to sit here and talk too much crap. But other than that, I did call Lauren Murphy to win the fight. She showed up. Austin Hubert, man, this guy, he looked good, man. Max, he quit on the stool going into the third round. When it was 1-1, it would have came down to that third round. He obviously had some mental issues in there. His cardio wasn't up to par or whatnot. But that was a tough one. He was actually supposed to be coming on the show this Thursday, man. I was talking back and forth with him. An extremely cool guy. Hasn't really responded to me since, but no shame in that whatsoever, man. This he's going through some stuff right now. One of the biggest conversations in the MMA game is what happened with him and with his head coach and whatnot. Robert Drysdale, a guy I'm very high on, and it's a tough situation, man. So I hope that Max gets his stuff together and bounces back, because everybody raves about this guy. I think he just needs to get back in the gym once he heals up and whatnot, and start grinding. And this guy could be a potential contender. I think even though he quit on the stool, I know that the UFC brass doesn't like that type of stuff. Dana doesn't like that. I still think they eventually give him another shot. He did take that fight on short notice. Other than that, Jillian Robertson, she won the fight by holding Courtney Casey down. Fair game to her. But of course, Courtney Casey was definitely the better fighter on the feet, and she looked good at specific times, but could not stop the takedown. Marc-Andre Barult, when you see him fight in that small cage, man, he looks like a tough customer. He can give a lot of guys problems in that small cage, man. It's hard to get away from him. He cuts off the cage and he gets to you. Tisha Torres, this is another play, right? A lot of people, want to talk crap. First off, I'm going to pull up my overall fight picks. Take a look here, because I killed the main event. The main card, hit pretty much all these, right? Except the Roberts fight, which we'll get to. But the prelims were tough, man, but people try to talk crap about my overall picks. Point me in the direction of the people. First off, almost everybody was on Modafari. I picked Lauren Murphy, so that was one thing. A lot of people were on Casey too, but whatever, I'll take that L. But the Van Buren, people were trying to poke fun about the Camacho and the Van Buren losses. Those are two losses right there, heavy favorites that I didn't see anybody picking the other, the other opponent. Of course, very few people had Tisha Torres, but not a lot of people. People want to act like they did after the fact, but going into that fight, everybody was saying Van Buren was the next little Daniel Cormier type of fighter. The little small girl, great wrestling, great pressure. She's undersized, but she's tough. All of a sudden, everybody knew she was a slouch after she loses, right? That's how it goes, right? But you cross out those two, which pretty much everybody lost on. Max, a lot of people had Max too, man, big favorite. And whatever, man. I mean, this was a decent fight card. I had Josh Emmett. Picked the underdog Emmett. A lot of people were on Lyman Good. But whatever, it wasn't one of my best overall picks, full card picks. But it is what it is. And just to get back to the, to get back to the fight card, Brianna Van Buren, Tisha Torres stepped up in that fight. Bobby Greene, I had a parlay with Bobby Greene and Roosevelt Roberts. I had a big parlay, so that basically spoiled my night. I also had another play on Raquel Pennington, but it didn't really matter. It was a small play, and this was my night right here. Roosevelt Roberts, as soon as he went out there and he threw that sloppy leg kick and he was on his back, I knew it was bad because they were dry. Jim Miller's a crafty submission artist, and I had a bad feeling because it was just a rookie mistake. All he had to do was take his time in there, have a nice low stance, make sure no takedowns, make sure the fight didn't touch the mat, start pumping the jab, let them strike, let it play on the feet for a little bit, let them work out a sweat, and I think Roberts would have took that fight over. Miller's kind of been folding towards the end of his fights recently. He's been getting a little bit older. His cardio's been slowing down, and I think Roosevelt Roberts would have won that fight. I think he wins that fight 8 out of 10 times, 7 out of 10 times, but not this past weekend. So that really got me bad, man, right there. Shout out to Jim Miller pulling off the armbar, man, a true legend. And then, of course, I said I had a little bit of money on Raquel Pennington. She showed up. I did pick Josh Emmett to win that fight. These weren't my official plays, but as we had the fight companion going, we all started throwing some money just to have some fun with the show and whatnot. We went big on Josh Emmett, and also we threw some money on Belil. So yeah, that sums up the card. Shout out to everybody that follows me on Instagram. Of course, I'm creeping up on 5,000 followers. I appreciate all you guys. And other than that, man, creeping up on 2,000 subscribers. Appreciate all you guys. Just want to give you guys a quick sample of what the fight companion's looking like these days. It's really a blast. The numbers are picking up on the show, man. We got all different types of people popping in. It's a great way to watch these events. If you're at home, you're by yourself. You can't go out to the bars and whatnot. Or if you never really were the typical guy that went to the bars, come join us. You know what I mean? Even as things get back to normal, we'll be running those fight companions. We'll be doing it again this Saturday for the main card. I really enjoy it. This is just a quick little sample, but things get crazy, man. You guys can check the video out. Right here, you got it zoomed in on me, but I switch up the format, and we end up doing some tequila shots. I had guests popping in. We were doing tequila shots and all. It was a great time. So just to touch upon that a little bit, and let's see, man. Here's the odds for UFC. On ESPN, 12, Dustin Poirier versus Dan Hooker. A lot of heavy favorites here. A lot of heavy favorites in the card. And, Curtis Blaydes. We'll touch upon the main event, too. Curtis Blaydes looked good. Got a lot of solid takedowns to start off the fight against Alexander Volkov. Clearly won the first 3 rounds. Then, as those later rounds started to play out, Volkov was trying to creep back into the fight. But that was Blaydes' fight, right? Blaydes looked good, but, did gas out a little bit there. But overall, decent fight card. I'm excited for this upcoming Saturday. And, here's the card again, man. I'm really excited for these last 2 fights. And, yeah, man, I guess there's only one thing to do. We'll get to the first fight of the card. A guy that I just was talking about earlier, man, Jordan Griffin, who's taking out Youssef Zalal. Again, Jordan Griffin announced this fight. To my knowledge, he probably broke the news on MMA Live Discussion. So that's what you get, man, with MMA Live Discussion. Jordan Griffin, I think that was pretty much breaking news, man. They were just signing the contract, and he was talking about this tough Moroccan fighter. Of course, you guys know him as Youssef Zalal, a very dangerous fighter. Youssef Zalal is a very, very dangerous fighter, and but Jordan Griffin is very dangerous as well, man. Jordan Griffin, the native psycho. If you guys haven't checked out, let's see 1 second. Pull that up for you guys real quick. If you guys haven't checked it out, here's the interview with Jordan Griffin, man. Just a little sample of it. And, if you guys are contemplating throwing some money on Jordan here, I think this is a great interview for you guys to check out because you can get inside the head of Jordan leading up to this fight, man, as he talked about, how the fight got announced and where he was at as far as, the last fight with Derek Meaner. How, he doesn't want no part of Derek anymore. And, he already beat him once before. No reason to run that fight back. So, We got into a lot of cool stories, man. Some street fight type stuff with Jordan. An extremely cool dude, and I expect to have him on the show moving forward. So just to touch upon that. But yeah, let's get to the nitty gritty, man. The Native Psycho coming off a solid win against TJ Brown. The loss against Chad Skelly was an extremely closely contested match. Did lose to Dan Ige before that. Dan Ige is a legitimate customer, man, when he steps in there. So no shame in that loss. But you know what you get when Jordan Griffin gets locked into the cage. This is the guy that's never out of a fight. He's going to continuously be going for the win, even if he's down 2 rounds. He's going out there to pull off the rear naked choke in the 3rd round. Excellent submission skills. Like I said, this guy's always in the fight. Striking's underrated as well, man. Training over at Rufus Sport, striking is not bad. But the submission game is really his bread and butter, if you ask me. I think that he just grinds on people, gets them tired, and then he uses his technique to pull off these submissions. Now, as far as his opponent, Youssef Zalal, this guy is a dangerous fighter. I pulled up some of his fights as of recently. Young customer, 23 years old. You take a look at the Jamie Hernandez fight that took place over LFA. That was a nasty knee. That really put him on the map. After that, he got his UFC debut under his belt against Austin Lingo. Was able to pull off the victory there. Austin, not the biggest name in the game right now. Not a Jordan Griffin per se. We take a look at the odds. Jordan Griffin right now, it's a pick'em fight, but as of recently, some money's been coming in on Youssef. I'm going with Jordan Griffin to win this fight. Shout out to Jordan. This is a really cool customer, not just because he came on the show. I think that he's more well-rounded. This is a guy that's been around the block for a longer period of time, more experience. He's very calm in there. I like the attributes that he brings into the cage, and I'm definitely going with Jordan Griffin in this spot here. So I got Jordan Griffin to win that bout. All right, so in the next fight, we got Jinh Frey taking on Hansen. All right, so both these girls making their UFC debuts. Jinh Frey was a champion over in Invicta. Tough little customer here. She's coming in as the dog, though. She's 35 years old, training over at a Genesis BJJ, and she's coming in as the dog. Did win her last fight over in Invicta against Ashley Cummins. And, she does have some losses on her record, though, man. As you look through, man, she's lost to some girls. Did lose to the same girl, Hamasaki. How you say that? Let's see. Hamasaki. Lost to her twice. But other than that, Jodie Escobar is another girl she lost to. That's a girl that's really not in the level. We've seen her throw down over in the UFC. But, yeah, I really don't think that, even though she was a champion and whatnot, I really don't think that she's really on the level, if you ask me. Now, you take a look at her opponent, Hansen. Hansen is not the most impressive record either, right? 6-3, but she's very young, 20 years old. She has a good jiu-jitsu game, man. Very solid jiu-jitsu game. If you watch the tape on her, she has good entries too on her takedowns. Nice little inside trip takedowns as she shoots in, and she has good top control. She's a tough girl. You take a look. You see her on top over here in Invicta. But then this Jinh Frey, man, she's a tough customer too, man. She comes in very in shape. She's very professional. You see her doing some shadow boxing here, right? Doing a little bit of Muay Thai shadow boxing, man. 35 years old, still in very good shape. And here's the thing, though. I like what I've seen from Hansen on the mat. I think she's the type of girl that, if you really don't have good takedown defense, she's going to get on top of you. She's going to win rounds. And she can also pull off the submission on you, too. I don't know if I necessarily see her pulling off the sub here, but I do see her spending some time on top here. I really think that she'll score some points and it'll look good for the judges. It's a small cage. I think she gets her hands on her opponent here, and she wins the fight. As far as the line goes, we'll touch upon that real quick. Yeah, she's right around minus 150. Some dog money on Jinh Frey. You can get her at plus 130. But I got Hansen to win this fight. All right. Now this next guy, man, you guys know who I'm talking about here, man. Coming off a very, actually, hold on. Let me double check that. We got one more fight before that fight. You guys know who I'm talking about, though, moving forward, because I'm excited to see him get back in there. It looked very, very good. But before that, we got Takashi Sato taking on Ramiz Brahimaj. And Takashi Sato, the Japanese fighter, been around the block for some time. Takashi Sato, and this is a guy that's, he's been reliable at times, right? We've seen him go in there and take guys out that he's supposed to, like Ben Saunders, right? The Ben Saunders fight, he was a heavy favorite in that fight. Everybody's knocking out Ben Saunders. We got to give credit where credit's due. He did go in there and handle business. But then he takes on the guy in Belal Muhammad. Actually, that Muhammad fight, he was actually looking very good in that fight before he got subbed. Actually, to start that fight off, he looked very good. Looked decent in the second round too. Eventually, Belal caught his rhythm, and Belal took over that fight, ended up getting the submission. But Sato he's a very capable fighter. A lot of fights over in Pancras. I'm not that high on that promotion. I'm not really so high on the fighters that fight over there for the most part. But you see him he took out Joe Proctor way back in the day, but we're talking all the way back in 2013. Not a lot of big names on his resume, right? There's really not a lot of big names. Now you look at his opponent. This is a guy who's 8-2. He's not going to have as much as experience going into this fight. But from what I've seen from this guy, he looks like he's very well-rounded. A lot of submissions on the resume. Fighting over in LFA. LFA, some of the top regional fighters in the world. Guys that are really trying to make their way into the UFC. These guys are very capable fighters. If you ask me, the LFA fighters are probably on a higher level than the Pancras fighters, for the most part. So some may disagree, but I'm just not that high on the whole Asian scene over there. I mean, if it's one, one is a whole different story. But so you take a look at this guy, a lot of subs on his resume. You got to wonder if he's able to get this fight down to the mat. Can he pull off the submission? As we've seen, we've seen that Sato does have a little bit of issues with his submission defense at times. Sato's coming in as the slight favorite here. I as far as betting wise, I don't really like the value of getting Sato here. I think this fight's more around a pick'em if you ask me. But I kind of do want to edge Sato to win this fight, but where the line is, I really don't like it. I think this should be a pick'em. The value would have to be on Ramiz. I think that he has an excellent opportunity to win this fight, and I've been back and forth on this right now. I'll tell you the truth, I've really been back and forth. I was settling in with Sato, but I don't know. I could see this guy pulling off the submission, man. Training over at Fortis MMA, and his striking is not horrible either. His striking is not that bad, but really, I really think his submission game is his bread and butter, man. 2 questionable losses. Yeah, it's a tough one. I'm gonna go with Sato to win the fight as of right now. If anything changes, I'll update you guys. I slightly edge Sato. Don't really like that line though on him. All right. Now, this next fight, this is the guy I was talking about that is coming off an amazing performance. You guys know who I'm talking about, Sean Woodson taking on Kyle Nelson. Now, I will say this. I know a lot of you guys feel like Sean Woodson's just going to go out there and destroy Kyle Nelson like he did to Kyle Bochniak. Here's the thing. I'm not saying I disagree with you guys there, but Kyle Nelson is not Bochniak. I'm telling you guys right now, Kyle Nelson is way more capable on the feet. I think people kind of underestimate him a little bit. He's a tough customer, because Sean Woodson's coming in as a heavy favorite right now, and I don't want to hear you guys going nuts, all commenting on my posts, throwing dirt at me after Kyle Nelson pulls off the upset after I pick Sean Woodson, right? Because everybody's picking Sean Woodson to win this fight, but when I pick him and he loses, everyone's going to come after me, right? I'm just poking fun, but it is what it is. I'm definitely taking Sean Woodson to win this fight. I think he has a lot of potential. He only has 7 professional fights, but this guy's height and reach advantage is ridiculous. Look, he's coming into this fight with an 8-inch reach. He knows how to use it. He really does know how to use it. I don't think that Kyle Nelson's really going to exploit his grappling and his, if Sean Woodson has any holes in his grappling game. We did see Sean Woodson get taken down in his Dana White's Contender Series fight, where he was a major underdog. If you guys don't remember that, coming in, that's where he got the flying knee against Terrence McKinney. Terrence McKinney was a guy that was a big favorite in that fight. Terrence McKinney did get on top of him a little bit, slowly gassed himself out though, and then the sniper sniped on him, right? Does he have holes in his grappling? You got to wonder. We really haven't seen him, put to the test against a guy that really knows how to grapple. Because typically you see guys with this type of frame. He doesn't have really, a solid background in grappling. You could see guys getting in under his legs and getting takedowns on him, and he might spoil the party. But I don't think that Kyle Nelson's going to be that guy. Kyle Nelson's a guy that really just carries power in his hand. I think this is a really bad matchup for him. I think Sean Woodson's going to style on him, pick him apart. But yeah, I mean, you take a look at Nelson's last fight, knocked out Polo Reyes. Polo Reyes, though, has really not been looking good. He's been losing to everybody. It's almost like a 500 record now as a professional. Matt Sales, an underrated fighter, good fighter. Diego Ferreira, you guys know the deal with Ferreira. Ferreira's the real deal. No real shame in that loss. May have taken that fight on short notice, too, in his debut. I forget exactly. I think he may have. But how about the first round knockout against Khama Worthy, a guy we're going to be talking about here in a little bit. Khama Worthy's he's a ferocious fighter. So, like I was saying, don't get it twisted. Kyle Nelson carries power. He can knock out anybody, period. But again, got to go with Sean Woodson, the sniper. I think the sniper, he does his thing. And you see him here. Beautiful knees up the middle too, right? Bosniak was trying to pressure him. Beautiful knees right up the middle. Yeah, man, this guy, the sky's the limit for Sean Woodson if he could put it together. And it's just really funny, thinking about his Dana White's Contender Series debut, because he took that fight on short notice. He wasn't even supposed to be in the Contender Series. He was supposed to be like a bum. That's part of the reason why the line was so high on his opponent as well. But he's obviously legit. So that's Sean Woodson, man. All right, guys. We're sliding through it. Getting to some big boys here, right? Tanner Boser taking on Philipe Linz. This is a good fight. The line's close on this fight too, right? Just about to pick up. I kind of see why, right? I mean, both these guys are very capable fighters. Both of them are very tough. It's really kind of hard to sleep on either one of these guys. We'll start off with Tanner Boser. He did just lose his last fight to Cyril Gane. As you see Cyril Gane over here. Cyril Gane is, everyone's really high in this guy. They think he's a potential champion, right? Tanner Boser was a champion outside the UFC in a smaller, in the smaller regional scene, but it was kind of impressive, in my opinion, the damage that Tanner was able to take against Cyril Gane. And just to not be finished, you see Cyril finishing a lot of guys, but you ain't finishing him. This guy is kind of reminds me of Roy Nelson. He has the mullet, a little bit overweight, but don't sleep on his skills. This guy is, he's a decent fighter. He showed up in that Daniel Spitz fight, pulled off the victory in his UFC debut. He's always going to be in your face, and he kind of reminds me here, this fight, like in the small cage, I think it benefits him in the sense that he kind of reminds me of that guy, Barut, who we just saw fight, the Canadian fighter. They're actually both Canadian, but they remind me of themselves in the fact that both of those guys, they're tough, they have granite chins, they're going to try to press you, they're going to try to close the cage off, and it looks good on the judges' scoring cards. They're just kind of cornering you, throwing bombs and whatnot. And that's what I expect him to do here. Now, Philipe Linz, in my opinion, will probably be a little bit more skilled, in my opinion. Has good jiu-jitsu. He's a well-rounded fighter. Has put in some time at American Top Team. Coming off that loss right against Andrei Arlovski, I picked Arlovski to win that fight. Not a lot of people did. Arlovski, was crafty in there, and it was a close fight, but Arlovski won that fight. I would say that Linz did seem to slow down towards the later rounds. Not that Tanner Boser has the best cardio, but he'll be grinding, he'll be pushing forward. This is an extremely close fight, in my opinion. I'm going with Philipe Linz, the Brazilian fighter. I'm going to pick him. And as far as the line goes, like I said, pretty much even, right? It's a pick 'em, and I'm going to lean with Linz here. I think he's going to have a fire lit under his ass, and I think after losing that last fight, he's going to know that he really needs to come in here and show up, right? He needs to show up. He needs to put his foot on the pedal and make things happen. So, I'll take Linz. But Tanner's a tough dude, man, and I'm telling you, the small cage might help him out. He'll be bringing it. All right. In the next fight, we got a girl that's getting thrown right back in there, right? Romero Borella taking on Miranda Maverick. I think it's so funny, man. You take a look at this girl, Romero Borella. She's put in some time at American Top Team. We've seen flashes of her in the octagon where her jiu-jitsu looked amazing. Just watching her pass guard and the way that she just transitioned, I was like, wow, this girl's serious. The fight that I'm talking about, I'm going to pull it up real quick, because I remember when she first started fighting in the UFC, I'd say 2-3 years ago, I was like, this girl has some real promise, right? Some real promise. But let's pump the brakes on that. The fight that I'm talking about was the Kalindra Ferreira fight. And she looked amazing in that fight, man. Pulled off the quick submission. Ever since then, she's been, she's won one of her her last 5 fights, the only fight that she won was against Talio Santos. Talio Santos, the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu specialist who, if you follow her on Instagram, she's always eating chocolates and sweets pretty much every day. And she grinds it out. She puts the work in the gym. You see her doing that too. But you see that she carries a little bit of extra weight. And when you see her constantly eating sweets, you kind of understand why her career went completely south. Not an impressive split decision victory over Talia Santos. So, she could be, she could have lost her last 5 fights, and I don't understand why they keep throwing her back in the octagon, but I guess they need an opponent, and she fits the description. Miranda Maverick, I'm going to go with her to win this fight. I'm going to let you know right now. I just think that Borella is so unreliable. Just to touch upon that real quick, the way that she looked against Casey in the last fight, gets the takedown, then just, boom, gets armbarred. She's very unreliable. She has the jiu-jitsu skills, but she just gets submitted herself. She's very hot and cold. It's weird. And now you got Miranda, the young newcomer, 22 years old. She's just coming off a win against Pearl Gonzalez. Pearl Gonzalez is a tough chick. She has a big following. Obviously, you guys know why. Deanna Bennett, not a bad fighter either, so pulled off a victory against both those girls. These are legit fighters. And Deanna Bennett was also a fight that she lost, and she redeemed herself, so that's good. You see her, working on herself and polishing up her skills, right? And I think that she's a very well-rounded fighter. Good submission skills. I think she'll hold her own on the mat, and I could expect her to get a submission here. Honestly, maybe that's a prop bet that you look into, because Romero Borella just makes continuous mental mistakes in there. You take a look at the line. Yeah, the line's ridiculous right now too. Yeah, minus 300. If you maybe want to parlay it, but again, you got to be careful with those women's fights like that. In my opinion, lower level women's MMA. All of a sudden Borella shows up, right? And she looks like she did in that fight we talked about earlier. She's looking amazing. So be careful, man. Be very careful with that. You see Romero Borella getting armbarred here against, cast iron Casey. Of course, Casey's looking good, man, right now. But, she ain't doing something like that against Jillian Robertson. She almost had some subs in there, right? Her submission skills have really been looking good recently. But, Jillian Robertson's looked really good too. So keep an eye on Jillian Robertson. All right. Sliding right through this card, man. This is a good one. All right, now we're getting to some exciting fights here, right? We got Luis Pena taking on Khama Worthy, right? Violent Bob Ross coming in with only an inch reach advantage, even though he has a 4-inch height advantage. Khama Worthy is a guy that had an amazing UFC debut, right? Was a big-time underdog taking on Devontae Smith, right? Devontae, King of the Cage Smith, got that knockout. That was a big fight card, too. I remember pulling up to a party to watch that fight, man. That was a big upset. Now we're doing the parties right here at the Penny Bar, Fight Companion, man, this Saturday. But, yeah, man, Khama Worthy, the big upset on Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith's a guy a lot of people were high on. A lot of people probably still are. Violent Bob Ross, though, he's a different type of fighter than Devontae Smith. Doesn't really look for those power shots. He's more of a very fluid striker. You see Violent Bob Ross over here. I bumped into Violent Bob Ross over here at Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship. Seen him over there. I know he put some time in down over here at American Top Team. I know he was also training with AKA. So this guy's putting time in with some of the best camps on planet Earth. You see him over here over at American Top Team doing some pad work. And very fluid fighter. You got to love his confidence, right? You remember ever since The Ultimate Fighter, man, this guy, he came out there and, he thought, he was saying from the very beginning he was the best fighter on that show. He really believed that. Of course, the injury ended up, kind of setting him back on that show. But Violent Bob Ross, man, we got to talk about him for a second. This is a guy, he's made some mental errors inside the octagon, in my opinion. Okay, looked good against Steve Garcia, not the biggest name. Matt Frivola, that was a fight I thought he won, but he made the mistake of letting that fight play out extremely close. I was there for that fight. That was in Tampa. I talked about this. The whole crowd was going for Frivola, kind of helped Frivola steal that win. But Violent Bob Ross let that fight play out a lot closer than it did. Sometimes he's in there, man, and he looks like his brain turns off for a second. You'll see him on his butt, then he has to work his way back up. He kind of just tunes out, then he's back into it. He's a guy that has a lot of good skills. I love the southpaw striking that he has. Not a lot of power, but he's very fluid. A lot of volume too. He's going to be scoring points for you. I'm definitely going to go with him to win this fight. You take a look at the line. You know, he's a pretty big favorite here. Let's see, where is it? Luis Pena, minus 270, man. That's high. And that's high against a guy in Khama Worthy that has knockout power, you know? A guy that just knocked out Devontae Smith, right? A guy in Devontae Smith that if he was fighting Violent Bob Ross, you know, where would the line on that fight be? You know, almost a pick-em maybe. You know, who knows? Maybe Devontae Smith would have been the favorite. A lot of people are high on him. Maybe not the favorite, but you know, you guys see what I'm saying. You know, so Khama Worthy might be the type of fighter that puts another explanation mark behind his name, and then all of a sudden people start respecting him after that. But right now, not a lot of respect. They think that was a fluke. I tend to agree. I'm going with Violent Bob Ross. I do not like that line, really. I don't like that line. So you got to be careful with that. And yeah, there's Khama Worthy with that nasty knockout over Devontae Smith, man. Definitely carries power, man. Look at him running around outside the cage, if you could see that. And he's a dangerous fighter, man. He could definitely spoil your party. But going with Violent Bob Ross to win the fight, man. Got to go with Violent Bob Ross. Only 26 years old, getting better, you know, each day. All right, this is a fight that has all the makings to be an exciting fight, right? Maurice Greene taking on Gian Villante. Some people like to call him Gian Villante. Maurice Greene, this is a guy, if you ever wanted to know what your favorite basketball player would look like fighting inside the octagon, Maurice Greene is the guy to show you how that looks, right? 6'7", you know, he's about the same height as Michael Jordan, I think, right around there. You know, a little taller than Dwayne Wade. I like to refer to Dwayne Wade. He's big down over here, where I'm from. But Maurice Greene, you know, he has good footwork. You know, it's weird. He's stiff in his legs in one aspect, but he also has a little bit of good footwork. He's very upright, kind of bow-legged a little bit. But he's light on his feet, and he has that little pitter-patter type of style. He'll rack the points up on you if you don't get in on him too, man. Look at the reach advantage. You know, he comes with the 82-inch reach advantage, or an 82-inch reach, I should say, and he's coming into this fight with a 6-inch reach advantage against Gian Villante. Gian Villante is a guy that you know, he gasses out at times, doesn't show up at all in specific fights. You know, you got to wonder, does he kind of just hang around because he's one of the boys, right? He's kind of one of the boys. You know, him and Chris Weidman are best friends. You know, Dana White's cool with all these guys. And he does put on very, very entertaining fights. Let's not downplay that, because his fights are entertaining. And I think that's why he's been able to hang around as long as he has. But now, Maurice Greene, I expect Maurice Greene to win this fight. Maurice Greene is a cool dude, man. You follow him on Instagram, a really cool dude, a family guy. A guy that you guys could see on the show relatively soon. He's boys with my boy Juan Adams, the guy that was the first fighter to ever come on MMA Live Discussion, episode 1. I know they're very close, so I might be having Maurice Greene come on the show. Maybe we'll get a celebratory interview with him after he wins. Now, in regards to the line, though, the line is very high for a guy like Maurice Greene, in my opinion. Minus 230. That's a high line. But, you know, I don't know how, you know, this is a card, man. There's a lot of heavy favorites, so I think this is the type of card that could really bite some people in the butt. The Crockett Boss, man. Cool dude. You guys remember him from the Ultimate Fighter show. You know, that's where he made a name for himself. Coming off 2 losses. Alexei Oleinik, I mean, that's just a mismatch, right? You know, Alexei, shout out to Alexei, who was also on my show, MMA Live Discussion, the 2nd episode. Alexei Oleinik is just you know, an excellent submission artist, and if you're not on the level with your grappling, he's gonna get you down to the mat, and he's gonna handle guys like Maurice Greene. Sergey Pavlovich is actually shown to be a good fighter, besides his debut loss against Alistair Overeem. But now, take a look at the Junior Albini fight. Looked very good in that fight. The Jeff Hughes fight, he looked very good. He was sitting on his back foot, pumping the jab, and if he could do that this upcoming Saturday, I think he pulls off the victory, right? And as far as Villante goes, if he loses this fight, I mean, he's just losing a lot of fights, you know, But like I said, a lot of entertaining fights. The Ed Herman fight was a very entertaining split. The, you know, Francimar Barroso, that was another close fight, split decision. So, you know, we'll see what happens to him down the line. All right. Now we're getting to some really exciting fights. Brendan Allen taking on Kyle Daukaus. Now remember, this was a last-minute replacement. Kyle Daukaus was substituting for Ian Heinisch. It's a shame. Brendan Allen versus Ian Heinisch, in my opinion, had major implications for the weight division. I think the winner of that fight would have really been working their way through the rankings, and we would have really been really had to have taken note. The winner of that fight, the route that they were going in. Now, Kyle Daukaus, though, I don't want to underestimate this fighter, right? Kyle Daukaus is a fighter that has actually really looked good, man. 9-0, he's undefeated. This isn't your typical fighter that's just coming in on short notice. That's not really on the level. The UFC just needs a fighter to fill in. Kyle Daukaus is a guy, like I said, undefeated, and he's been pulling off a lot of impressive submissions. Take a look at his resume. Only 27 years old. This guy is pulling off Darce choke after Darce choke. 3 Darce chokes out of his last 4 fights. Rear naked chokes, more Darce chokes. I mean, this guy, you got to wonder, is this the type of guy that can come in and spoil the party? We were talking about this on the Fight Companion episode. Somebody was high on this guy, Jonathan Webb. They said that Jonathan Webb, they're pretty high on his submission skills. Looked into that a little bit. Webb, looks like a decent fighter, right? 12-4. A guy that also pulls off subs here and there. So he's going out there subbing guys like that. Now, Brendan Allen, in my opinion, is a completely different customer. Brendan Allen is a guy... I don't want to say who I would have in that fight over him and Ian Heinisch, because stay tuned. That's a fight that we'll probably see down the line after Brendan Allen wins this fight. Brendan Allen is a guy that has very good submission skills. He's very good on the mat. This isn't a guy that's going to put his neck out there, in my opinion, and get darced. I mean, it could happen. Daukaus is obviously very good at that, but Brendan Allen is just so composed. You take a look back at Brendan Allen's debut on Dana White's Contender Series, where he was a pretty big favorite, right? Goes into that fight against Aaron Jeffrey. That guy, Aaron Jeffrey, is bringing the heat, man. He's charging him down, pushing up against the cage, just throwing bombs. Brendan Allen, I think he handled himself amazingly in that fight. He's like, you know what? I could have met fire with fire, and he probably could have went out there, started throwing bombs, and knocked him out right away. But you know what he did? He sat back. He sat on his back foot, circled on the cage, was dipping and dodging, showed to have good head movement. And then, you know what he did? He ended up clipping Jeffrey with his own nasty hook, got it to the mat, and pulled off the rear naked choke. So, showed that he has amazing striking abilities and grappling abilities. A complete, well-rounded fighter. Believe he's been putting in some time at Rufus Sport, a lot of time in at Rufus Sport, yeah. That's his main training camp, to my knowledge. Those guys are really high on him. So, only 24 years old, too. Who's going to show up each time, bro? 6'2", 77-inch reach. He has a nice frame. He comes in fit every time. The sky is the limit for Brendan Allen. All in. I think he really is all in, man, in the fight game. And I'm gonna go with Brendan Allen here to win this fight. As far as the line goes, could be dangerous. -300 against a guy that can he could spoil the party, an undefeated fighter in Daukaus. So be careful. Just to touch upon Allen again too. I had Allen to win that fight when he was a dog against Kevin Holland. You can run that back. I had him to beat Holland. I'm very high on Holland as well, but I thought that Allen would expose Holland as far as it's not expose actually, because Holland has very good submission skills too. I just thought that Allen would be a little bit more stout, a little bit more tough in there, a little bit more polished up. So Allen is the real deal, man. These are big wins. And just to take a look real quick at his resume, Tom Breeze, right? That was a nice upset. Kevin Holland. And lost to Anthony Fluffy Hernandez and Eric Anders, two UFC caliber fighters. So Trevin Giles also early in his career, that's another UFC caliber fighter. So those were the 3 skids, and he was young, man. He was really young. I mean, back in 2016, that's 4 years ago. So he's 26, right? Or 24. I mean, he's 20 years old. He's growing. He's having some growing pains through the fight game. He's rounding out to be a very good fighter. All right, you guys are excited for this one, right? I know you guys are excited. Your guy's boy is about to throw down. Everyone loves this guy. Let's pull it up. Your boy, Mike Platinum Perry, taking on... I know a lot of you guys like this other guy too, Mickey Gall, man. These guys are fan favorites, right? A lot of Mickey Gall fans in the room right now. A lot of you guys watching this, right? A lot of Mickey Gall fans, a lot of Mike Perry fans. I'm joking, but obviously these guys, their names carry a lot of weight for whatever reasons. Mickey Gall, of course, had the fight against CM Punk, really put his name on the map. He called him out, right, on Dana White's Looking for a Fight, got the fight, pulled off the victory. For people that don't understand, CM Punk is not even, forget about UFC caliber fighter. He's not even I don't want to say he's not a fighter. I mean, I guess he did. He went to the gym and he trains. But I would bet my life that I would go out there and destroy CM Punk. I'd put my life, my house, everything on the line that I would submit him or just beat the brakes off CM Punk. So let's get that straight. And I'm not a UFC caliber fighter, so that was not really anything to talk about. And then after that, let's take a look, right? Mickey Gall, since taking out CM Punk, did take out Sage Northcutt, right? That was where Sage Northcutt showed that he was just young and really made some big mental errors. But then, the Randy Brown fight, the Diego Sanchez fight was really a bad look for him, right? The Diego Sanchez fight, that's like really the only opponent that Diego's really even put in work on like that and for a long period of time, right? Mickey Gall did show up against Salim Touhari, but I don't want to throw too much shade at Mickey. I think Mickey is a good fighter. I think he's a good fighter. Kind of ranting on the whole CM Punk type of thing though, and that just it strikes a nerve with me because this guy Mike Jackson, right? It's funny because he's right here too. Mike Jackson, Mike Jackson got the second fight against CM Punk, and that fight just drove me nuts because this is another guy that I feel like I would destroy. Mike Jackson. I don't care if he's a professional, he trains. I feel like I'd whoop this guy. He's a clown. And, he had his first professional victory against CM Punk. And he was toying with him. Remember that? He was toying with him and the UFC cut him right after. But just to touch upon that. Now, Mickey Gall does have high caliber submission skills. I do believe that. I think he has... maybe not high caliber, but that's his specialty. He has good jiu-jitsu. He's a jiu-jitsu based fighter, and I wouldn't underestimate him as far as his jiu-jitsu skills go. Now, Mike Perry is a guy that we've seen have mental errors, mental lapses, mental errors in there where he causes himself to fight, of course, against way different type of level of opponents, right? Cowboy Cerrone, that was a fight he had no business going to the mat, stuck his arm in there, reminiscent of this past weekend, which cost me some money. Roosevelt Roberts, playing around with Jim Miller, just rookie mistakes, right? We see these rookies make these mistakes sometimes. At least let the fight play out, man. Get sweaty, and then you could avoid those types of subs. When you're dry, man, that armbar, they'll snatch it up, man. When you're sweaty, it's so much harder to catch an armbar, man. You guys know what I'm talking about if you guys train, right? When you're soaking wet, sweaty, man, the second round, man, your arm pulls right out of there, majority of the time. But back to Mike Perry, your boy, right? He's got his new little girlfriend over here. He left the wife. I don't know what's going on with that. I know a lot of you guys love to talk about that. His old wife, the tennis player. I'm trying to get her on the show. If anybody knows her, shoot her a message. We'll get her on the show. That would be a good one. Mike Perry, he was showing off his battle wounds. It looks like me when I was a kid when I fell off my bike. I don't know why everybody made such a big deal about that. A little scuff on his knuckle. Looks like when I went around the block by myself when I was 4 years old, 5 years old in the rain and slipped on the moldy sidewalk. Mike Perry is a beast, man. We could all joke about him and whatnot, about like whatever this situation is over here, because it's a very strange situation, but none of my business. But Mike Perry carries power, man. He carries legit power. I like his striking. And honestly, Mike Perry, you see this in the gym, man. There's certain guys, I truly believe this. For those of you guys that train, you know what I'm talking about. Mike Perry is the type of guy, like, forget about just as far as skills go. There's certain guys that have it in regards to just like power and toughness. Mike Perry is a guy that's a real fighter, right? There's certain guys that I knew like that in the gym, or I felt like I would be like that in certain aspects, like where you could train or whatever and people could style on you, but in a real fight, man, like you have certain attributes that don't really come out as much in your little, 50%, 40%, striking training. Mike Perry's a guy that can eat a shot and he could just clip you with one of those hooks and put you out. In a real street fight, it's a whole different thing. Or, even in a real MMA fight, it helps a lot, right? And Mike Perry has that edge. He really has that X factor. He has extreme power. If he connects with any of those hooks, he's gonna take Mickey Gall's head off. Okay, we've seen him do it, right? We've seen him do it. Some of the nastiest knockouts we've seen, right? How about the Jake Ellenberger? That was a nasty elbow. Alex Reyes looked nasty in that fight. Danny Roberts was a disgusting knockout. Hyun Joy Lim, the Korean fighter, was a nasty knockout. So he carries power. You take a look at the guys that he's losing to. We're talking about top-of-the-line fighters. Jeff Neal, Vincente Luque, Donald Cerrone. The Max Griffin fight, that was a setback, right? I was there. I saw that live. I sat there, actually a guy I'm trying to get on the show too, Alex the Spartan Nicholson. I sat right by him and the whole crew, all them. For that fight, we had they had the whole things. They gave me some. They had a bunch, big old pictures of Mike Perry's face. He dropped the ball big time in that fight. against Max Griffin. That was a fight that he should have won. But you see that Perry's really stepping up his game. And even in the Vicente Luque fight, Vicente Luque is so technical. The striking is really high level. And Perry hung with him that entire fight. I don't think it should have been a split, but he kept it close, right? Of course, that nasty knee broke his nose. But I like Mike Perry. I think Mike Perry, I don't think that he's just a character, you know. I know he gets a lot of notoriety because of the way he holds himself. But I think he's a very skilled fighter. I really do. So this is a bad fight for Mickey. I think that Mickey's going to get smashed. The only way Mickey wins this fight, maybe he snatches up an armbar or something. No, I don't even see him taking Perry's back and getting a choke. I don't see that. I think maybe a fluke armbar or triangle, but I could see him wrapping up a triangle on Perry and Perry lifting him up and slamming him, kind of like Rampage in Arona, something like that. So it's not looking good for Mickey Gall. And if you take a look at the odds, minus 310, I think that's reasonable. Minus 250, maybe I would have it, but Perry's probably going to go out there and handle business. So, and you guys tell me what's going on with Perry, right? He has this little thing, right? He left his wife for his little girl, but he's a funny dude, man. Funny dude. He's an interesting character. Interesting dude here, Perry. Love to have him on the show, maybe one day. All right, let's see. Mickey Gall. Yeah, this was Mickey Gall when he took out CM Punk, man. All right, you guys. We know what time it is now. Time for that main event. This is the fight, right? I like when the UFC does it like this. I really feel like that the card should be going on an upward trajectory, right, to the main event. This fight is it's amazing. Dustin Poirier versus Dan Hooker. I'm a big fan of Poirier's. I think that Poirier is a very dangerous fighter. I think he's a championship material. The only people standing in his way right now, obviously, is Khabib. Maybe Gaethje. He already took Gaethje out. Gaethje's a different fighter nowadays, though, right? And Conor McGregor, we'll see how that fight plays out if they ever ran that back. Of course, let's not forget, McGregor slept him in the first round. But Poirier's put it together. And Dan Hooker has really been putting it together right now as of recently, too, 30 years old. So you take a look at them. Hooker's going to have a 2.5-inch reach advantage. Hooker likes to keep his hands low. He has a very unorthodox kind of switching stance. He's a very good striker. Training over at City Kickboxing, has training partners like Israel Adesanya. They put a lot of time in together. But then you got Poirier, who's just extremely accurate, has great cardio. People sleep on Dustin Poirier's striking, man. I'm a big fan of it. You take a look at him on that bag over here, man. He's nasty with it, man. I drive right down the street from this very often. It's right by my old house. This is the new top team. That window's facing right off 441, right by my old house. I drive by, you can't really see through the window that good. It's usually fogged up and whatever, but that's right facing out down the street from me. And imagine you peek through the window, you see this killer over there hitting the bag, man. He's a stud, this dude. You see him putting in work on the pads with another legend in the game, Thiago Alves. I mean, top team's where it's at, right? He's sharpening up his sword with guys like Jorge Masvidal and all those types of guys. And then Dan Hooker, man. Dan Hooker coming off. Let's touch upon this fight here for a second. The Paul Felder fight. He won that fight. That was one of my major plays on that fight card. Made it another profitable night for me that night. And I had Dan Hooker winning that fight easily. That some people might feel different about it, but I thought he won that fight easily, 3-2. I give Felder 2 rounds, but Felder was throwing those power shots. Trying to take Hooker's head off. I do believe that Hooker's defense is going to leave him out there, man. Poirier is going to be clipping him because, you saw Felder, tagging him up, keeps his hands low. And Poirier, in my opinion, is a lot more of a precise striker than Paul Felder. Paul Felder has nice striking as well, good power, but I think Poirier is a better striker. And, I'm definitely leaning Dustin Poirier to win this fight. Now, I want to bring up a fight, man, that if you guys remember this one. Remember when Dustin Poirier got knocked out by Michael Johnson? I bring that up. Just a fight for you guys to take note on. Dustin Poirier has been in some battles. He's been in some wars. This is a guy that, if he gets clipped, I mean, anybody can get put out, but Hooker can knock out Dustin Poirier. He could throw some unorthodox and wild, and don't be surprised, if something similar happens to what happened in the Michael Johnson fight. These guys are going to be going to war for 5 rounds. The Michael Johnson fight, they just came out early through heavy heat, and Johnson clipped Poirier, and that was one of the nastiest knockouts I've ever seen. But Poirier since bounced back. The illegal knee with that whole Eddie Alvarez situation was a weird one. Came back, got the victory. Taking out big names, right? Pettis, Gaethje, Alvarez, Holloway, Jim Miller, and then Khabib, right? I would have loved to have seen if Dustin Poirier would have really went in on that guillotine. Obviously, he didn't get that. He said he didn't fully commit to it, and then, Khabib ended up finishing him. But, Dustin Poirier is a guy that's never lost back-to-back fights in his career. Seen that he's lost to a couple guys here and there, but, Poirier is the real deal. I'm going with him to win this fight. Don't be surprised if Hooker pulls off a flash knockout, or if he keeps it close and somehow wins the decision, possibly. Don't really see that, though. I got Poirier winning this fight. As far as the odds go, Poirier is a heavy favorite, man. A heavy favorite here, minus 220. You kind of want Poirier at a little bit of a lower line, in my opinion. Some people may think there's some value on Hooker here. You're going into the main event. It's a 5-round fight. I wasn't the biggest fan of Hooker's cardio too. Keep that in mind. Hooker's cardio, he kind of slowed down in the 4th round. Did end up coming back strong in the 5th round though. So he kind of slowed himself, and then he paced himself, came back up in the 5th round. So Hooker's dangerous. Hooker's a dangerous fighter, and but I got Dustin Poirier to win the fight. So that's gonna sum up the show, man. I appreciate all you guys for tuning in. Also, Fight Companion is going down Saturday. The numbers are picking up every show. You guys got to come join us. We'll do a shot. Let me know whatever you guys drink. I'll match you. We'll do some tequila, whatever you guys want. I drink tequila, scotch, whiskey. I'm not going to do shots of vodka, but you guys know the deal. Whatever you guys want to do, we'll drink up. We'll have a good time. Bring your own alcohol. I'm not supplying. And we'll make it a profitable night altogether. It's a fun time, man. We talk betting advice and certain live plays. Or when I say live, I'm talking about right before the fights, as they're walking out. We like to have a little fun together, talk about some plays, and it's cool, man. It's a really good time. We got people from all around the world. We got people from Australia in the chat. We got people from New Jersey. We got people from you name it, man. All different parts of the world, man. We got people from South America and Peru, everywhere, you name it. So it's a really good time. I highly recommend you join us. Other than that, Thursday, 8:00 p.m. MMA live discussion. I'll be announcing soon who I'm going to be having on the show, and then also I'm still running that promotion. We're going to be announcing some winners here towards the beginning of this upcoming next month that's coming. Remember, if you want to enter the promotion, just refer 3 friends to follow me and 3 people to subscribe to my channel, and shoot me a DM. Let me know that you did that, and I'll put your name in the raffle. I'm going to give you guys a free month of my picks. All right, so that pretty much wraps it up over here. Appreciate all you guys that lasted this long in the episode, that stood around this entire time with me. Appreciate you guys. And on that note, that's pretty much it. Any last thoughts? Man, I just finished my coffee, so I know I'm rambling to you guys a little bit here. But I hope I got this breakdown out to you guys in a good way. Hope you guys appreciate the breakdown and it can help you make some money. If you guys are interested in my exclusive plays, shoot me an email, MMAfortuneteller@gmail.com, or the best way to get a hold of me, Instagram, shoot me a DM, MMAfortuneteller_. And that wraps up the show. So I appreciate all you guys. And on that note, there's only one thing we could do, right? So we'll signing out, the teller.